You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again for a little bit of the old OB, everyone's favorite bi-weekly source for all things options related. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the THE OptionsInsider.com, as well as from the network upon which so many of you are binging out there these days. Hope you had a great weekend. We are heading into, listeners, the final week of our 80s wrestling trivia, and also one of the final couple of trading weeks of the year here. So a crazy, tumultuous year. We will be looking back soon on all the craziness that's gone on this year throughout various shows on the network. So it should be a fun time for all involved. Of course, if you like this, anything else you hear on the network, throw a like, a star, a comment, whatever your platform lets you do. All of it together collectively helps new people continue to discover the content. And then, of course, if you want to discover more content, come in at the end of the year, like, what can I do to maybe turn my game up to 11, get a little bit more great, compelling content in my life in the world of options? Only one place to go, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Man, hundreds of pro Q&A sessions waiting there for you. More coming at y'all. We just did 2 doubleheader for you just last week. I mean, we're crazy with the content over there on the pro side because we like you folks. Only one place to go to sample all the wares, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Get in there soon. You want to get your name in the hat also for the December Pro Trading Crate. Always a fun time. The December Pro Trading Crate, as well as, of course, options oddities, all the other cool stuff you get on the old pro side as we go around the horn and see who's joining us on the old program today. And it's an interesting one, listeners. It's an interesting one. It's the Monday show. Again, today, and then we have Thursday, but then we're off. Next Monday is Christmas, so of course we're not doing a show on Christmas. And the following Monday is New Year's Day, so no show on that. Plus, it would be the first. It would be wrong to do a 80s wrestling trivia for the year on the first. So this is our final 80s wrestling trivia segment. And listeners, can I just say, for those of you who've been playing along in the home game, man, it has been an epic contest, an epic battle. We will reveal the full results on the Thursday show, but just crunching some numbers before showtime. And Uncle Mike came out to an early and pretty commanding lead in this contest, very much a counterpoint to last year where Sebastian kind of ran away with it. But then post-October, Sebastian actually had a decent run here, and it was kind of coming down to the wire. And let's just say today's points would have been crucial for a certain someone out there, but we have a little bit of a change-up, a last-minute switcheroo. The meatball called away on assignment at the very last minute. Very, very unfortunate for him, because subbing in his place is the Rock Lobster, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And we all know 80s wrestling, not his strong suit. That said, I was surprised to see Andrew has totaled 3.5 points on the year somehow in this game. So no mean feat for him, considering he knows roughly 3 80s wrestlers. So we'll see if he can compete for a 4.5 point, excuse me, a 4.5 point level here for the show, or Uncle Mike, aka Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, can cement his victory on the road to claiming that awesome. I'm looking at it right now on my desk. That I want to keep it on my desk. Unfortunately, I have to give it to this guy. That awesome IC belt replica, because it is time for our final 80s wrestling trivia challenge. Here we go. All right, listener, let's get to it. And I have a feeling when he looks back on it many years from now, the meatball, he will look back on many things that he probably regrets. One of them will be not being able to participate in today's 80s wrestling trivia challenge. It would have been a fight for the ages. But today's 80s wrestler, as we close out the year, listeners and Mr. Rock Lobster, just if you have a guess, just put put buzz in the chat if you're ready to chime. I'm guessing you probably won't be, but you never know. You might surprise us all. Today's final 80s wrestler here of the year of this epic contest that has been 2023 is he wrestled in the 80s, definitely. He probably was better known for some of his stuff, and probably more of his prime was in the 70s. By the time he was getting into the 80s, it was probably almost in the tail end of his run. But he did do some epic work in the 80s as well. He was known for many things, including for a kind of a southern accent. Also, his legendary polka dot outfit that he would wear on occasion, as well as his finisher, which was known as the bionic elbow, which he finished many people with. There we go. I had a feeling that would do it there. Okay, I'll let you guess, Mr. Uncle Mike. Then we'll get into some more trivia about this person. Mr. Uncle Mike, who am I talking to about southern accent, polka dots, bionic elbow? Who are we talking about, sir?
I mean, I thought I was going to have it at polka dots, but I wanted to be safer today since Sebastian wasn't here, and I know for a fact that Andrew is not going to know about the bionic elbow, but none other than the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Yes, a classic. I was gonna throw in a fun extra element just for you, Uncle Mike. See if you would have enjoyed this. I know you would have. He was actually fired in the 80s from WCW for excessive bleeding, which they banned there, because he did a fight with your buddy. I think it was the Animal. I think one of those two from the Road Warriors. And he broke off a spike on his armor and stabbed Dusty in the eye. And so they were bleeding. Ooh. And so that was too much for WCW. I think it was Turner at the time who bought them. And so they said, you're out. So your Road Warriors guy actually cost Dusty a gig. So if you couldn't get it, I was going to throw that one out there for you. A little bit of Road Warrior trivia, because I know they're your favorite of all time. So there you go. The legend that is Dusty Rhodes. Mr. Rock Lobster, are we speaking absolute Greek to you?
Yes. What's funny is I have heard the name Dusty Rhodes, but I would have never put him together with the bionic elbow, clearly.
Of course not. I also would have said another trivia point. What his son now, 2 sons are still wrestling. One's getting older, but one is like one of the biggest faces in the main WWE right now, big superstar right now. So the Rhodes legacy continues as the show continues right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, listeners. Fitting that we go out with none other than the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. The S&P living that American dream this year, man. Just shaking off all the slings and arrows that could have been amassed against it. Record inflation, all sorts of geopolitical instability. Just about everything you could think of. Like slowdowns in various parts of the economy here and there, overseas, massive slowdowns. All these things just assailing the S&P all year. And at the end of the day, it really just took 2 magical letters to correct all that. It was AI. Just the whisper of AI. And we were off to the races. Towards the end of Q1 of this year is when that really seemed to kick in. Maybe actually it was middle, because a lot of names topped out around early February. So Yeah, and then it's just that set the tone. Magnificent Seven were born, and we never really looked back on the year. A lot of the other names we looked at, though, if you go more to the middle and lower end of the pack, of course, had a different kind of year. A lot of them topped out around that period and never really regained those lofty heights. So it's been an interesting year. So coming into the end, long way around to saying S&P pretty firmly green again, up about 0.5%, closing in on not quite 47.5, but pretty darn close. 47.44 or so right now, up about almost 25 handles again today. So intriguing stuff. Dow kind of unched on the day, slightly green, and the NASDAQ up about 0.6%. And since we were just talking about the middle tier and the lower tier of the market, let's talk about our old friend IWM, also kind of flat right now on the day. So again, kind of a day of pick your poison, but mostly decent to slight green on the day out there. Interestingly enough, all this green on the screen is not really hitting vol at all. We're getting the weekend back, looks like, and then some. VIX up about 0.5 point right now, 12.5, which is great because I got some puts in my back pocket going away on Wednesday. So let's get some of that downside. It's a winner for everybody. S&P to the upside, VIX to the upside. Who doesn't lose in that scenario? VVIX at about an 88, up about 6 points. So VVIX also looking frothy. Again, if you just glanced at these numbers in the vol space right now, out of any other context, apropos of nothing else out there, you would think maybe the worm was starting to turn out there a little bit. Or at the very least, there might be some brewing concern on the horizon there. VXX up about almost 0.5 point, 16.10 when we kicked off the show. UVXY 890 also up about 1/3 point. SVIX 3670 down a full point from those ridiculous highs. Was that not too long ago? And UVIX, even UVIX, you know what it takes to lift UVIX? UVIX up nearly a full point, 0.8 point at about 15 when we kicked off the show. So yes, the game clearly afoot out there today, listeners. But first, let's go to the winner. And it's not official yet. We have to crunch the numbers. But I think with that victory, that point today, it kind of pretty firmly establishes who the belt is going to. So an early, but not final congratulations. An early congratulations, Mr. Uncle Mike. Again, the producers have to crunch the numbers. There could be some upset, some day we missed out there. That's going to tilt things in Sebastian. Maybe Andrew took it somehow. That would be impressive. But I think it's going to be trending to the land of St. Charles. But Mr. Uncle Mike, first off, do you have any enduring memories of the one, the only American Dream, Dusty Rhodes? B, what's catching your eye out there in today's market? And C, are you also stunned that Andrew managed 3.5 points this year?
Well, before we even get into A, I just want to make an announcement. I got the belt. You don't like it? I don't care. Woo! And if that belt is not on my desk within the next couple of weeks, I'm coming to Chicago with a folding chair, and I'm going down to Austin with a folding chair. That is my belt.
Hey, as our guest our celebratory person from last week says, Ric Flair, to be the man, you got to beat the man, and you may have beat the man this year, so we shall see.
I ain't no maybes in this one, baby. I'm coming with a folding chair if this thing ain't mine. I'm pumped. I got the belt. I just need a moment to bask in this. It's like, this is like so exciting to me. But
I will say I am enjoying having this on my desk, so it will be some pain to give it up to you. Yes.
Well, I appreciate you doing this, Mark, and I'll save my victory speech more for Thursday. So anyway,
console myself with the awesome belt buckle that neither of you chose, which is huge and almost like a belt in and of itself. I don't know when I'm going to wear it again, but I can rock it around the house.
Pretty cool, I must admit.
I can rock it around the house, and who's going to judge me for rocking a sweet IC belt buckle around the house? Nobody, except maybe the Rock Lobster.
I mean, your wife must love it.
Huge 80s IC belt fan. Huge. That's why I married her.
What other reason is there? But anyway, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, the man of the people. He's a blue-collar man. He was the people all loved. The blue-collar folks loved him. Him and Ric Flair, not so much. Excuse me. But you don't mess with the bionic elbow. I mean, you watch him and he does that, and that's tough to get out of there. That's tough to come back from the bionic elbow by all means. You don't mess with that one. And the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, I mean, he was someone who I just remember. I remember him more as an announcer later on because, yeah, I would say he was more of an NWA guy back in the early days of the 80s, and but much respect for the American Dream. someone said something on the broadcast once about the American dream in general. And I don't think they were referring to him, but he was working as an announcer, and he just stopped the whole show. He stopped everything and says, absolutely not. The American dream is not dead. American dream is alive for everybody today. And how can you not love the American dream, Dusty Rhodes? He was the man. But with that being said, in these markets today, 48.18 is what I'm watching, not to steal the thunder from around the block that much, but we're near the 47.5 level in the SPX, and 48.18 is the all-time high with which we had in early January. And for our newer listeners to the show, I do have a certain expression that I say whenever we make new all-time highs in the SPX, but we're not there yet. But if we get a couple of big days this week, perhaps on the Thursday show, I could say my trademark expression. Ric Flair can have his, I have mine, but you'll have to get all-time highs in the S&P and wait till Thursday's show to hear it, if and when we get it. So that's where we're at with that right now. But we are rallying a little bit today, and who knows? Maybe with this show, we can push the market up a little bit with this. The rallies of the day, I shouldn't say the rallies of the day, because it's not a huge rally on the day today. We're up about 0.5% on the S&P. And Mark, you're right, with the Russell, it's really not moving that much today. And on the MDY, the S&P mid caps, that's up 1/3%. And in looking at this, energy is the big, not necessarily big story of the day, but just looking at XLE up 1.4% on the day. And then throughout the rest of the market sectors, there's really nothing that's really taking the lead or really causing this whole thing to rally, so to speak. But this is fairly broad-based, but I would say that fairly broad-based, that is. But energy is probably the biggest thing that's moving it. The thing that would make it go more, I believe, is if Apple would get on this stick. Apple's down 1% on the day, and Apple continues to flirt with this 200 level. And it's funny just because of how much the stock is split since we've been doing this show. And it'll be interesting to see if Apple can make a run at 200 by the end of the year. It has its all-time high at 199.62, split adjusted, of course, but 200 is definitely a mental number for Apple. And what I think is another thing that'll be interesting to see is a lot of times when stocks hit another $100 mark, a lot of times they rally after that. And it'll be interesting to see if Apple does hit the 200 mark, if it can continue to rally and break to the upside a little bit further. If that's the case, then 48.18 might not be that big of a point of a resistance on the S&P, because if Apple's in the driver's seat in the markets, typically they do pretty well and can go pretty far. So that'll be interesting to see as well. In the bond space, bonds are selling off a little bit on the day-to-day, nothing too crazy. But looks like they've leveled off a little bit since last week. And I believe we talked about this on the Thursday show as well, in that we had just this very bullish rally on them since the Fed seemed to kind of not, I don't even know what the heck they said, quite honestly, but it's very difficult to parse the words with which are said at a Fed meeting. But when it sounded just a little bit dovish, there's a lot of bond buyers out there, and they appear to have leveled off, at least for the time being. And then with silver, one thing about looking at the chart pattern of silver, it's still channeling. It seems like it's been channeling for a very, very, very long time, but the channel is getting wider and wider. So that could indicate a breakout could be coming in the near future as well. 48.18 is my number of resistance on the SPX. We'll see if Santa Claus can break through that. And that's what I'm watching these days, sitting as your reigning option block wrestling trivia champion.
Not official yet. I'm just saying which way the trends and the indicators are pointing. It will be made official later this week on the Thursday episode. And then sometime in the distant future, if we can arrange all the shipping or just the transport, logistics to St. Charles are very difficult. So it may take quite a while for this awesome belt to leave my desk and make its way to St. Charles. I expect within the 2 to 3 year window, but we'll get it out there. All right, and also joining us from the land of Maine, the guy who's like, I see belt. What are these people talking about? He is the Rock Lobster himself, Mr. Andrew GIOVINAZZI. Mr. Rock Lobster, We always enjoy having you join us on the Monday show. I will say, for your compatriot, this was an unfortunate bit of substitution at the very last minute out there, as he will come to regret this many years down the road when he's seeing Uncle Mike in photos online, just going around the country with his IC replica belt and just showing it off to the kids. He'll say, that could have been me. I could have been the contender. But that said, Mr. Rock Lobster, what are your enduring memories of the One American Dream, Dusty Rhodes? And then B, if you have time after all of that recollection, what's catching your eye out there in the market today?
I have to say, I don't really have a lot of enduring recollections of Dusty Rhodes. The
bionic elbow,
I just remember
the polka
hearing
dots,
the name once.
The American Dream. Of course you do.
So now I also have the disturbing image of you running around your palatial estate in that building in the WWE belt, which it's not leaving my brain, sadly. So I come onto the show for some kind of mental torture, as it were. But hopefully that the image will shake out. It will shake out. And then, of course, TOSAW wearing the belt and running around St. Charles. Are we going to get flagged in the morning? Do you know this strange man running around after midnight with a WWE belt?
Let's hope he is dressed underneath the belt. We don't want any other charges leveled against him since the last time. So who knows what could happen? The unintended consequences from this whole WWE thing. As far as the market goes, it does appear to be a one-way train to all-time highs. I like that TOSAW is, I remember at the beginning of the year, we were having those magnet numbers that have all kept, they kept slowly going up during the year. First it was 3,900, then 4,100, and we seem to have left 4,100 in late October, I believe. And since then, the new magnet is 700 points higher in SPX. So, after watching stocks move around for over 30 years, nothing surprises me anymore. So right now, from a trend point of view, I think it is likely we hit, at least statistically likely, that we hit an all-time high in SPX, just to put the needle into all the shorts before the end of this year. Again, who knows if I'm correct, but man, it's too close to me not to happen. So I'm somewhat geared up for that. I will note that from a vol point of view, it's kind of stuck here, at least in the 12 handle, which is reasonable. A lot of the short-term volatilities, because the holidays are coming, are now in the single digits. I was looking at all kinds of trade ideas going into the end of the year. Like 480s and VIX, looking at a lot of calendars at the 4,800 level, stuff like that. They are not outrageously priced, given that they are. Funny enough, the 473 straddle to expire on December 29th is $3.56, which was, $6. And so that would put us almost to 480 SPY. So I think the market wants to go up there. NVIDIA, the AI is at almost $500 again. So again, I'm not putting it past any of these stocks at this point. And again, I would not waste one penny shorting any of these big Q stocks. I think Apple's down just because of some FTC trade reg, blah, blah, blah junk. But I expect that to be over, and it will probably be a buying opportunity for Apple, just because it is one of the Magnificent Seven. As of right now, all they do is go up. And I think that's what we have as far as whatever the Fed does. I don't even know what they're doing. And I mean,
they say all kinds of nonsense, but ultimately, I don't think they're going to cut rates because the government borrows too much money, and their bond market is going to tell them where the rates are. They could pretend that they're going to cut, but I don't see how that's going to happen unless we go into some QE inflationary spiral, which I don't see is going to be good. So as much as everybody's saying, the Fed did this, the Fed did that, they raised rates. Inflation seems to have slowed down somewhat, although a lot of items are not cheaper, like food, health insurance. I think gas has come down quite a bit, which has certainly helped. Natural gas prices have come down, but I don't think anybody's food bill is less. Not even by a long shot. I think still probably 25% over two years ago. So I don't know how this will all play out, but I think the worst that everybody expected to happen with the economy has not happened. And in general, I think the market is already looking forward to or looking at 2024. And they're feeling some kind of regime change, even if Biden is not the Democratic nominee, it'll be somebody else. And the market, is forward looking. So it'll be somebody else or like right now, according to the polls, some Donald guy. So it'll be one of the two. I don't think it will be what's currently happening. So I think that's another reason why stocks are kind of taking off a little bit.
You think if we get a Trump repeat, will everyone come on the network and say he ain't a single-digit VIX president again? And
what's funny is we'll probably have another year of single-digit. Oh, Sebastian says he's free now. The problem is he's already lost.
Yes, it's over. Yeah, he missed it.
I'm just going to send him a note, but sadly, dude.
Tell him this is a day that shall live in infamy in the Sebastian household. As I keep on rolling out there too. What is lighting it up out there amongst the indexes? And I mentioned, VIX kind of remaining stubbornly resilient right now. Volume-wise, not so much, though. Only 260,000 contracts on the tape. That also looks bad against an ADV of 700K, which is about the same as it was on Friday's Volview. So not a lot of change from the Friday show on that front. SPY back to a more normal level after we saw towards the tail end of last week. This time of the show, over 6 million contracts, closing in on 7 million already. Not that case today, but still robust, 4.5 million. That's usually at the upper bound of what we've come to expect from this time of day here. So that's certainly impressive. Just recency biases have got us looking a little bit higher. The ADV close to 7 million is SPY right now, 6.94. The S, 1.78 million, so also looking pretty impressive out there. Again, not the nearly 3 million it was this time last week, but hey, impressive stuff nonetheless. The ADV, 3.09 million. Small cap, 680, also looking kind of light compared to the well over a million that it was on our last show on Thursday. Right now, the ADV is 1.4 million, so closing in on halfway to that. We'll see if it gets there. And the Qs, 2.1 million. The Qs are like clockwork. They're always right around 2 million. This time of day, and then it takes them the rest of the day to get the other roughly 1.3 million. The ADV out there about 3.33 million. Is it a banger single name day? The answer is, that's about as much as I can muster. It's a respectable day, I will say, on the single name front. Cost you nearly 250,000 contracts, 248,000. If you've been listening to the show for a while, that's nothing to sneeze at. It's not 150, 160 like it easily has been very recently. It's also not over 360 like it was on our Thursday episode. So we're right in the middle of that range. That's why I call it respectable. That gets us number 10, SoFi, 248,000 contracts. SoFi up about 30 cents. Trading 965. You know the deal for them. It's been an impressive year. It's $4.50, so it's more than doubled since the beginning of this year. Of course, they had a higher level of about 1170 back in August. They're below that. They actually didn't get back to their low for the low for the year was at the start of the year, right around actually 4.25. They got to about 4.75 in a lot of that sell-off madness in contagion fears. So they have recovered from that, obviously, and looking decent today. 248,000 contracts, and the number 10 spot. Number 9, we're back to our somewhat normal layout for the chip zone after AMD is saying, "Hey, look at me, got my own cool AI chip," and leaping near to the top of our most active. It's back down to number 9 today, where we usually see it slotting in. 263,000 contracts today. AMD actually selling off a little bit, 138 and 3/4, off about 40 cents. Number 8, coming in, one of our old friends from this year. This is Palantir, 267,000 contracts on the tape. Palantir actually selling off about 1/4, right around $18, $17.95 or so right now. So selling off a little bit today. You know the deal with Palantir. It's been lifted right on the back of that AI wave, along with a lot of other things out there this year. Number 7, it's Meta, the artist formerly known as Facebook. 346 and about 60, up about $11.70 or 3.5%. So a nice pop for Meta out there. They have done a nice turnaround since that nadir, and it doesn't seem like it was that long ago that they were hitting the 112.5 level. We were talking about that person who got run over a year ago by the Nove 200s and how foolish that person looked, and immediately, and then of course, we talked about them on Options Oddities a bit too. We kind of tracked them. They kept rolling. They were persistent, and they ended up doing very well on that because obviously we are well north of the 200. And actually, they took advantage of the sell-off to roll down to a much better strike level as well. So sometimes persistence can pay off. Sometimes it's just foolish, good money after bad. But in this case, it ended up working out. Meta, 346 and 3/4 coming into this portion of the show. And the number 7 spot. Number 6, it is the artist currently known as Alphabet, formerly known as Google. Number 6, 357,000 contracts. Of course, it's Alphabet Class A. We had that brief period where Class C was making it in the top 10 as well. Not today, just Class A, 136.40, up about $3.80 today as well. So a couple of the Magnificent Seven really popping hard today. Interesting. Just a day that ends in Y. Got to buy them. Didn't buy enough of them on Friday. You got to buy more on Monday. That's how it works in this market, listeners. Number 5. Haven't seen this one in our top 10 in a little bit. This was a frequent offender for 2021 and 2022. Kind of fell off our radar this year. Back again today. It's NEO, trading $8.35, up about 35 cents, or about almost 5%. So a nice little pop today. Looks like Abu Dhabi investors are pouring in over $2 billion. So that's driving this name. This name, we all know, has had some struggles of late. Got down to, looks like 52-week low was right around the end of November, beginning of December. It was about $7 exactly, actually, 7 even. So it's up $1.34, obviously, from that level. Of course, the high for the year was over $16, about $16.18. That came in August, so we are well below that as well. So NEO, intriguing stuff afoot. And number 5 out there today. Number 4, keeping it in the end names, it's NVIDIA. 659,000 contracts. NVIDIA popping $10.50, almost 500, $4.99 and a third. It's only a little over $5 away from its all-time high. Actually, about $6 now. 505.5, just ticked down to 4.99 and a quarter. My goodness. So 6 1/4 away from its all-time high out there in NVIDIA. So, man, number 4, NVIDIA. Number 3, the Rock Lobster, we're just talking about them. It's the fruit company. 196, pretty much even, off about $1.50. One of the few big names out there kind of bucking the trend to the dark side today, listeners. AMD a little bit, obviously, as well. But they have some drama with their watch and getting caught up with a patent concern, so they literally cannot sell Apple Watches right now, which is a bit of a big deal for them. They have the cash and the lawyers to get it sorted out, I'm sure, as the Rock Lobster mentioned. But they did sell off to about 194.5 initially, so they have rebounded about $1.50 from that low, but still off about $1.50 on the day. Number 3, the fruit company, 693,000 contracts. Number 2, keeping it in the A names, it's the Amazonians, 154.15, up about 4.15 or nearly 3% today. So a nice little pop for them today, just like a day that ends in Y rally for them. Good for 701,000 contracts. You know what number 1 is. Will 2024 be the year that something can supplant Tesla at the top of our list? I don't know. Tesla's had a pretty strong death grip. For a lot of the early decade of the show, it was all Apple all the time. And then in the last few years, Tesla has really just taken the vice grip on the number 1 spot and not let go. Names have occasionally usurped it for a day or two, but that's really about it. And Tesla remaining the top champ again today, 1.33 million, 253.90, up about 40 cents. So very quiet day for a Tesla out there, at least net. It actually looks like it has a little over $6 range on the day, so it's been more active, but right now, kind of hanging out at unched. Good for 1.33 million contracts out there as we have to keep rolling. It's the final week for earnings on the year, listeners. So we got FedEx popping off this week. We got Micron, we got General Mills. We got some big names still popping off this week. So you like yourself a little bit of earnings, stay tuned for that. Our buddy, Mr. Matt, the keeper of all the earnings data, will be joining us on Vol Views on Friday to kind of give us a breakdown for the season and indeed for the year from an earnings vol perspective, as well as some of the highlights, the lowlights, the winners and losers, as well as what he maybe expects for the coming year from an earnings vol perspective. So you like yourselves a little bit of earnings vol, you like the numbers we crunch for you for free because we like you here on the old website, theoptionsinsider.com. Get on over there and check them out as we keep on going right on into the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody. Let's do it. Let's commence operations on the weird and wild side with the Odd Block. Let's kick things off with Nordic American Tankers. Ticker symbol NAT, N-A-T, trading out today $4.18, up about a nickel. So not a banger day, at least not right now. On the year, you know Nat Gas, if you've been listening to our TWIFO program, you know it's on our movers and shakers almost every week. So Nat Gas, decent name to deliver. Certainly one of the more volatile names we talk about on that show every week. It's usually hanging out in the 60s from a vol perspective right now, high 50s sometimes. It can get up to triple digits. It's hanging out right around 2/3 of that right now, which compared to things like VIX looks positively explosive. A year ago, Nat was at $3.18, so it's up exactly $1 right now, which is interesting. The high for the year actually came $4.83. That was right around Halloween. And then kind of has sold off. So that's a second trend we've seen for some names. A lot of names topped out in early February. Other names had a second leg of their rally right around Halloween. Then they kind of gave up the ghost there as well. So interesting stuff out there. So 418 up exactly $1 on the year for Nordic American Tankers. And Mr. Rock Lobster, looks like somebody is in love with the upside in Nat. There was a bit of a call palooza, shall we say, going up out there today. We first noticed a block of 6,000 of the Jan 4 halves going up for 15 cents. Paper lifting the offer on those bad boys. And then we saw right around the same time, about a minute apart, 3,027 of the Feb 4 halves going up for 25 cents. Paper lifting the offer on those as well. It is going ex-div as well, but they're going out to February for that would be a weird way to do, and Jan even. That'd be a weird way to do the old div play. 14,400 of the Jan 4 halves. You're also doing out of the money calls. So that would also be a weird way to do the the dividend play, as in it really wouldn't work. And 7,200 total of the Feb 4 halves. So Mr. Rock Lobster, we have some extenuating circumstances in terms of it going ex-div, but we got a whole freaking boatload of 4 halves in Jan and Feb going up today in Nordic American Tankers, sir. What say you?
Well, isn't there a potential like shipping problem? I saw something on Twitter, like the Houthi rebels are firing rockets at ships. And then it made me, I saw some guy said it reminded him of the Tusken Raiders, when in Star Wars, anytime you had any, anyway, it was kind of funny. But they apparently, or maybe Red Sea shipping lanes have been shut down, something like that. So there's some strife going on, I would say. There's some strife. So the short answer is I think they're buying these calls for some kind of like spike in shipping prices or something. Anyway, I think that's kind of following the thread of what's going on behind this call buying. But again, 100% speculation on my part, but the calls are still bid. And, the high of the year was 480 on this stock. So yeah, because the last 2 days, the stock has gone from 380 to $4.25. So maybe this could be a little stock replacement as well. So, but I think I feel like this is a newsworthy to be watched type trade.
I think so too. By the way, I was joking earlier. Obviously, this ticker symbol is NAT, and it's a shipper, so you think of natural gas, but they actually ship crude through, I believe, the Suez Canal out there. So they're one of the few tankers that isn't shipping LNG these days, but the ticker sure makes for some fun alliteration out there. So interesting stuff out there in Nat. We will keep an eye on these. If you want actual nat gas, tune into TWIFO on Thursdays. As we keep on rolling, one of the Rock Lobster's favorite names, he can't get enough of this, it's EVGO, ticker symbol EVGO. Trading 362, up about 13 cents today. We talked about this one in the past. This is the DC fast charging network, listeners. A year ago, it was trading 490, so they're off about $1.25, about 26%. That's from the beginning of the year. If you go back to, or I should say about exactly a year ago, if you go back to their high for the year, which was right a little over $8, $8.16 in the end of March, they're off quite a bit. So it's been a rough year for EVGO, even though they have bounced off their lows, which came again around, actually was on Halloween, October 31st of $1.88. So they have pretty much exactly doubled. They're around 360 and change right now. So they have doubled from that low, but a rough year nonetheless. Mr. Rock Lobster, it's like somebody thinks the doubling shall continue, as we got somebody going out to April and scooping 4,800 of the April 4s for 70 cents, lifting the offer. This was a wide market. These were 40 cents at 70 cents. They said, give me all you got at 70 cents. That's a 101 vol, which triple-digit vol kind of goes hand in hand with these electric car-related names, listeners. There are going to be earnings, and earnings are actually late. Earnings are not until April 1st, so that'll be interesting with these calls. That might keep a little bit more juice in them a little longer than you otherwise may have. But still, Mr. Rock Lobster, 70 cents for, as of right now, 40 cent out of the money calls in EVGO. What say you, sir?
Well, I mean, there is, what is there, 400 billion, I believe. Billion with a B. Investable dollars, green investable dollars sloshing around in the current executive branch bank accounts for these. So I think folks are starting to say, hey, wait a minute, this charging station thing, although I think Tesla's network is the standard, could be happening. Now, I would say, as opposed to last week when we saw this, these calls are already offered lower after the purchase. So again, doesn't get my favorite lift, and buying calls in these EV chargings like ChargePoint. Remember the jillion contracts a day in that thing? It's like a million contracts to nowhere.
Yeah, don't get me started on ChargePoint. That might be our winner for just most wasted contracts of the year, ChargePoint. Speaking of wasted contracts.
We should do a whole, we should do oddities on Friday just about
all the wasted money.
The daily madness of contracts to stocks to go nowhere. NVIDIA, Tesla, I can see the contracts. AMD, Microsoft, I can see the contracts. ChargePoint, EVGO, I just don't see it. But, hey, it doesn't mean it can't possibly go up, especially, hey, the administration gives them $200 million, and the market cap of the company is $1 billion. That's enough to kind of get things flying. So I think there could be some of those animal spirits in here, and I think that's what this kind of call buyer is seeing, if EVGO is a recipient of some of that largesse.
Well, they felt the animal spirits. The last time we talked about this name, listeners, was back on Options Oddities in August. If you're not on the pro side, you missed that. Someone scooped up thousands of the AUG 7s, this time paying 15 cents. The stock was $5.50 at the time, and those went to die. The stock closed at $4.20, not that far away from where it is right now. So they dropped quite a bit. They dropped over $100,000 on those calls. So this is not the first time we've seen someone swing for the fences in EVGO. The last time we saw it for size, they got pretty badly burned. Will this be the case where they turn a new leaf, or will they get burned as well? We shall see. But you know what? We never get burned with the strategy block. So let's get to it.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the Strategy Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Strategy Block, where Uncle Mike dispenses wit and or wisdom. And Uncle Mike, it always amazes me how timely your strategy blocks are. How are you going to know that we were going to talk about what we just did? Because it's amazing that you have a whole strategy block geared around profitable options trading in DC fast charging names like EVGO and ChargePoint. Have at it, sir. The floor is yours. I'm waiting with bated breath.
I'm going to do two strategy blocks now. How do you know you're going to be profitable in option trading? Be a brokerage and charge good commissions. There you go. How's that one for strategy block one?
So you want the house vig? That's what you want.
Yeah, just do it that way. So on the actual strategy block for the day, what I want to talk about, and I believe this is actually the last strategy block of the year. So with that being said, I'd like to discuss just something that we've talked about on this show a bunch. I mean, I've been beating the whole tax thing to death the last few weeks and with strategies. So hopefully you've taken that in by now. If you haven't, then, well, you should. Otherwise, you're going to have some problems. But what I want to go through today is I want to address the debate that we have on the show of should you buy or sell options on stocks that are below $5? And so where I want to go with this is, first off, my official position on this is that I don't even mess with stocks that are that price. So I never do it, because if I'm going to do something along those lines, I don't even mess with stocks. So I'm not part of that community. But I would like to say that if the bid-ask spread is very tight, then I would personally not have a problem with it, just because of the fact that if a stock is trading at $3 a share, if you can buy a call option on that stock that's trading at $3 a share for a dime, let's say, well, what's the difference? And if it's like 9 cents by 10 cents, what's the difference then of doing that as opposed to buying a $1 call on a $30 stock? I personally don't have a problem with it. The only advantage that I see, or the only disadvantage that I see to it, assuming there's good liquidity, is that you're going to have higher commissions than you would at a higher priced stock. So for example, let's take the $3 stock versus the $30 stock. The call option is theoretically going to be 10 times as much in commissions if you want to take that much exposure to it. So that's the disadvantage that you have, the inherent disadvantage that you will have, no question about it, if you are trading options on a stock at that level. Now, the other disadvantages that could exist and likely do exist, and the reason it's because of these reasons that I don't even mess with the stocks, are as follows. Number one, stocks that are that low of price typically move a lot more and are a lot more volatile. It could be a little bit better. It could be a little bit worse. So that's one of the disadvantages of trading stocks at that level. The other one that I think comes into play a lot with this argument or this debate is the liquidity of the options themselves. I had mentioned if the call's trading at 9 cents by 10 cents, big deal. Who cares? Trade it. Why not? Most of the time, it's not like that. That call option on a stock like that would probably be more like 5 cents by 35 cents or something like that without a lot of liquidity on it. So understand that that's also a disadvantage out there. So when you're considering buying and selling options and doing option strategies on stocks for that level, I would be okay with it so long as you have liquidity and you're comfortable with the volatility in the stock itself. Most of the time, you're not going to have those things, but if you do, I wouldn't have a problem with, because it can exist, or at least so I'm told. And that is the last strategy block in 2023.
Crazy. A whole year's worth of strategy block. Did you miss any, listeners? Luckily, we got them all archived for you there on the old option block and indeed the network feeds as we keep on rolling and we go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody. Let's do it one final time. See what everybody is keeping their eye on for the rest of this week until the Thursday edition of the show. One of the final OBs for the year. Mr. Rock Lobster, we shall start with you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on for the rest of this week?
I am keeping an eye on, can we see the 11 handle by expiration? So just because the symmetry of like the SPX all-time high and VIX, 11 handle for the year. I find that fits my, so I'm looking at that. I'm also looking to see if natural gas is having a little bit of a takeoff, if it can continue. But as usual, natural gas is always a giant disappointment, although it is great to heat your house with. And, but yeah, I think we'll see that. And I think things will be good. And, but I think those are really the two big things. Like, what's amazing is everybody all of a sudden is like, if rates aren't going up, we're having a good time. And again, like the market loves certainty, and the fact that it is likely the Fed is not going to raise anymore. Let just rates float here until there's a reason to change them. That provides a level of certainty for rates in the future. And as soon as there is that kind of a magnet, just people start jumping into stocks again. So nobody wanted them at 4,100. What was that, 6 weeks ago? But everybody wants them at 4,750. So who knew? Who knew?
Who knew indeed? Uncle Mike knew. He was buying all of it down there at 4,100. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of the week?
48.18, the number for the SPX to make all-time highs. Curious to see if that'll be the case. And then just watching the bonds to see if they stabilize at the levels with which they are at.
All right. And with that music, we bring to the close one of the final OBs for the year of 2023. Listeners, man, what a wild year. But we ain't done yet, not by a long shot. Got the crypto rundown coming up a little bit after this show. So stay tuned for that. I'll be joined once again by our buddy, Mr. Greg Magadine. He cannot get enough of talking to you folks about crypto volatility. He even snuck in there on Vol Views recently, talking about equity vol. So all sorts of fun. I have been roped into doing a panel at the beginning of this year here, one of the big conferences for options. Maybe I'll rope him onto it too to talk a little bit of crypto vol. I think I got the Flow Master joining me, so it should be fun. Going to break down all sorts of fun in the world of options. Maybe some, just spoiler alert, maybe some 0-day will make it on the panel as well. You know me, I like to record those things for you if I can, so maybe I'll get that out on the network for you folks to enjoy as well. If you're not in the industry, you're not making these big conferences, we still keep you folks in the loop. And let's go around the horn. Let's keep you in the loop of what everybody else has to offer. Let's start with potentially our new reigning champion in the world of wrestling, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir. If folks want to call you up to talk about the American Dream or your favorite of all time, the Ultimate Warrior, where should they go? What should they do?
Road Warriors, please. Let's check out stcharleswealth.com. Book an appointment with me. I'll give you a call. And this is Uncle Mike signing off as champ.
You know, I almost went, because he is the greatest of all time, I almost went Ultimate Warrior for our final episode of today. I thought that'd be too easy, though. I thought you'd guess Ultimate Warrior in a heartbeat if I did him for the final show of the year. So I went a little bit deeper. I went Dusty, even though we all know at the end of the day, we're all a bunch of warrior heads here on the show, including the Rock Lobster. You cannot get enough Ultimate Warrior. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir. A, your favorite Ultimate Warrior match of all time, and B, where should folks go if they want more Rock Lobster goodness in your lives? Or perhaps to debate your choice of Ultimate Warrior match with you.
I don't even know. I'm sure the Ultimate Warrior has had a long and storied career. So I'll let you guys opine on that. Is he even still active, or is he retired?
Oh no, all these guys
he expired worthless.
Oh jeez.
He did.
Wow. Mr. Uncle Mike getting vicious. He is past tense, as many of these guys we're talking about are. Wrestling not exactly conducive to longevity, sir.
I hear you. It might be the lifestyle fun thing that happens with the wrestling. What am I? Go to optionpit.com. Yeah, all of our stuff is over there. I've had a great year in my products. Hopefully I will have a great year next year. And again, market up, down anyway. If you trade vol, you don't care what direction the market's going. So you can learn how to do that at optionpit.com. And if you listen to this show, you get 10% off anything we sell, but you got to say, hey, I heard about you on the option block.
Unless it's a day like today where the market goes up and VIX goes up. Those can be annoying sometimes. Especially when the clock is ticking.
Those are great days.
Those are great. Yes, we love those. Find out how to deal with those and much more. Optionpit.com, the place to go. We got to get on out of here. But back again, like I said, in a little bit with the crypto rundown. What's going on in the wild, mad world of crypto volatility? We're going to find out together on the crypto rundown. Then I will be traveling throughout a good chunk of this week here. So we'll be back again, though, because we like you folks, on the next episode. We already have boot camp, of course, in the can. If you're on the pro side, you already got to hear the 2 weeks of double headers we did of options boot camp. For the rest of you, those will be hitting the on-demand network this week and indeed next week. And then I'll be back again on Thursday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.